All right, here we go. Nikon Z8 with the Viltrox 135mm f1.8 lens. We're just going to trust that autofocus is doing what it's supposed to do. I'm about maybe 20 feet from the camera. I'm at f2 on the lens, and everything is pretty much auto after that. 4K 24p, auto white balance, keep overall atmosphere. If you're familiar with Nikon, that's the white balance being used. I found sometimes the white balance isn't always close enough for me in shooting video for some reason. But anyway, well, I usually end up doing video in the shade like this. So it's sort of an overcast day. The sun's trying to peek out a little bit. But anyway, yeah, I just got this lens before I get into the Kevin Raber stuff. The Viltrox 135mm f1.8, you're probably familiar with that already if you're into photography, but it's actually very close to the Nikon Z mount 135mm f1.8, what they call the Plena, which I'd really love to have, but that lens is around $2,200, and it's just not really practical for me to buy a lens like that for limited use, because I wouldn't really use it much other than for things like this and what I'm going to call nature portraits. I do have a gallery that I'm starting with this lens, so I'll go ahead and link that down below. So just check the description, or I'll pin a comment with a link to the Viltrox 135mm gallery. I just got this lens like the day before yesterday, so I only have a few photos right now, but I checked the reviews and looked at samples between the Nikon version and the Viltrox, and everybody all the reviews that I watched and a few that I've read said that there's really not a major difference between the Nikon 135mm Plena versus this Viltrox, which is one of their what they call their lab series. I think the lab is like their highest grade lens. There's a Pro also. I think I had the 75mm f1.2 from Viltrox, and that was for APS-C size sensors, and that one really surprised me how good it was, because the Viltrox lenses I've had in the past, they were pretty good, but these are actually, in my opinion, they are kind of pro quality. And this one here, the 135mm, is just makes some really beautiful images. And one of the things I liked about this one over the Nikon was that you can actually focus closer, so you can get, I think it was 23 millimeters from the front lens element. So from the front of the lens barrel, 23 inches. Close focus distance. So that's pretty close for a 135mm lens, and the Nikon was 3 or 4 inches or more longer. So it just opens up more possibilities for creative shooting, and definitely going to be using this mostly for just artsy, creative nature photos and so on, and occasionally family portraits or whatever for my own personal use. But there occasionally someone might ask me to who's calling my phone, spam. Actually, that might be about the vultures. Anyway, hopefully they leave a message. It was about the black vultures I got out of the barn, the babies. They were really big babies, about this bigger than a hawk. But I think the parents might have abandoned them, or something happened to the parents. There's been some vandalism and people messing around in the barn. So unfortunately, I had to have some rescue place come to get the vultures, the babies, and let them finish raising them, and then they come back and release them. So anyway, I'll be doing mostly nature photos with this, and this lens is really sharp, and I can't find any faults with it. It is heavy, but it's a 135mm f1.8, and it's sort of compact, so it's going to be heavy. It is a little bit heavier than the Nikon version, not drastically, but I guess if you're shooting with a lens like this, then or you want a lens like this, and you kind of expect that. It's like shooting with a big telephoto prime lens, for shooting wildlife and so on. They're kind of big and heavy, and you kind of expect that. And this is my DJI Mic 2, one of my only, maybe second time using it. I believe I have the noise canceling turned on. I think it's on by default. You have to press the power button once to turn it off. So I just leave it on. But there's a little bit of noise in the background. There's somebody mowing, several hundred feet behind me, and birds and stuff I don't mind. That'd be nice in the video. But anyway, so far really like this lens, and for $900, 900 US dollars, for what the price is right now, that's a lot cheaper than the Nikon version and all the other versions. Like the Canon and Sony. Their 135 millimeter f1.8 is really expensive too. So this competes really well in my opinion. I mean, some people maybe want to frown on Viltrox because of maybe who they are or where they're from, but I don't know. You either want a high quality lens like this that's affordable for somebody like me that just does this as a hobby, or you don't. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. If you don't like it, then spend money or save more money, buy the other one. So anyway, this whole thing with Kevin Raber dying, if you remember Luminous Landscape, which still exists, but in my opinion, it's not anything like it used to be. And I don't mean to slam the people that run it now. I know there was some drama, I think, after Michael Reichman died. He was the original founder, and was that Chris Sanderson, I think, was the other guy that I don't remember the names too well, and I don't know any of these people personally. Although Kevin Raber is actually he lived only about 2 hours from me, or maybe a little less. But so Luminous Landscape, where Kevin Raber started out, I don't know if he started out there, but anyway, he was heavily involved in it. I used to enjoy watching him and Michael Reichman and the interviews they would do with people. And just, after Michael Reichman died, things changed, but it was still kind of what you would expect from Luminous Landscape because, Kevin was still there and, the other people. So then I believe what happened, I don't know if Michael Reichman's son took over and just things didn't go the way I would have hoped they went. And it just the quality, the content there, it's just, I don't know. If you've been the visitor to that site over the years, then you would know what I mean. It's just not what it was. And then Kevin Raber left, and I guess it was just my laziness, and I didn't really know where he went. I didn't know he had another site, PhotoPXL, PhotoPXL, if you want to look it up. And there's a YouTube channel for that. And about 29 minutes from now, that's one of the reasons I'm doing this video right now. There's going to be some kind of memorial or remembrance for Kevin Raber in Indianapolis, Indiana, and just going over his his life and photography. So that got me thinking about my my life and my photography. I'm getting older, and by the way, I've got a bump on my head, so that's why I'm wearing this Vice Grip Garage hat, from Derek, Vice Grip Garage YouTube channel. That's why I'm wearing a hat. But it got me thinking about my photography, and I think I have some really nice photos if you go look at my galleries, especially my favorites gallery at thephotographyhobbyist.com, thephotographyhobbyist.com all together. I believe I have some really nice photos, and I had some spontaneous, unsolicited comments, people really praising my photos. You had to send me an email because I'm not on social media really. So you had to email through my website. How reluctant people are to doing something like that. So the fact that anybody would ever, take the time to click the button and type in their email address and then type a message and send it that way, it's, kind of a little more effort. And so, yeah, I appreciate the people that actually do that. But, I hardly ever print anything. And I think, I came from before film, and, I did have a point and shoot film camera back in the days in the 80s. When I was in the Army, I had a little Fuji kind of point and shoot camera. I even had one of those Kodak disc cameras, if you remember that thing. When I was in the Army in the basic training, I think I bought it there at the PX. Or I can't remember, maybe I bought it before there, but it's just like a round disc and these tiny film in that disc, and you just, take pictures, and the little disc would go around. And so I had pictures from that, but that's really about my only film exposure. And, I just send it off and somebody develop it and send it back to me, and there's my pictures. But I don't really print anything from my digital. I have lots of photos, thousands, and I have, in my opinion, several hundred maybe that, really good quality that I would, would love to have on my wall. But I guess I just kind of don't do it because, when you start looking at framing, that's where you really get into the expense. Um, the print itself, even for like a 24 by 36 or something like that, pretty big photo, it's only like $25 or whatever, through the service that I use, where I host my website. But not really that expensive for the print. But the if you want to get a nice frame or even something decent that doesn't look kind of stupid with a really nice photo in it, then it gets really expensive. I've looked at maybe wraps or something like that, but I'd really like to have just a nice glossy print, large print that's just, I don't know, so if you have some ideas, put them in the comments down there, like some affordable ways to actually get, start printing my photos and, with this, not going to break the bank. But just the long story short, I don't really print my photos, and they just kind of exist digitally on my website. And I don't know what happens if I die. I assume somebody in the family would probably see the bill coming in every day or every month or year. I can't remember. I think I pay annually, and then figure out what it is, and then maybe just think it's time to let that die off. And then what? Then my photos are just kind of somewhere on our hard drive, and also on the online backup service that I use. And then, but I just don't think, especially because these are raw files, most of them they're processed raw files, but you had to export them, from Adobe Lightroom to get a JPEG to even really look at them properly, processed and edited the way they're supposed to be. So it just, I don't know, it just got me wondering about what happens when I go, and I don't really have much out there unless somebody's stolen my photos and put them on their website. My photos just kind of exist on my own website and on the hard drive and, somewhere on my online backup place. So I don't know, it's just something I thought about, excuse me, and maybe something you all should think about too, about what to do about your photos. And not that I have any kind of legacy or anything, I don't really care about something like that, but when you have family, let's say your grandparents died, and your grandparents grew up back when it was just film, and maybe they die, and you're at their house going through their stuff. You got to get the house cleaned out, and you find a bunch of old photos. That's their whole life. Where they went on vacation, their weddings and friends and family and all that kind of stuff. That was like a physical documentation of those people's lives, and you could see it. You can just go through it, and everybody can sit around and look at it. But now, that's the blessing and the curse of digital. It's cheap and easy, but at the same time, it's not like the movies where everybody has one of these little things on their wrist and a little hologram pops up, and it's easy to just swipe through grandma's photos and everything. That's not the case. But so it seems like if you die and you don't have your photos properly shared or printed or something and make everybody aware and how to find your photos and what to do with them, then all that just kind of dies with you. I mean, I don't know. Maybe in a way I don't know if it's a bad thing that happens. Maybe not. I don't know. But just something to think about without getting too deep into it. Oh, now the sun's starting to come out, so I wonder what's going on with white balance now. But yeah, so anyway, 5:30, I believe. It's supposed to be on, you're not going to see this until after it happens, I think, but Photo PXL. He has a YouTube channel, and he has some, Kevin Raber has some discussions with other photographers, and so he did kind of what I liked what they did in the past with Luminous Landscape, where they'd have conversations with other professional photographers and get their insights and show their work, and it was just interesting stuff. But anyway, it's supposed to be this talk or this memorial service or whatever you want to call it. It's supposed to be at 5:30 tonight. It's June 6, 2025. So I'm going to get back to the house and hopefully be able to find that. But I actually only learned about this. This is the other strange thing. I only learned about this from Luminous Landscape because he used to be involved with Luminous Landscape. I still kind of have a newsletter coming in from Luminous Landscape in my email. So they had sent one of those little newsletter things and mentioned all this about this event coming up this evening with Kevin Raber. But I didn't see anything, or haven't seen anything on the Photo PXL website, Kevin Raber's website, since he passed away, other than just the announcement that he passed away. So I don't know. I'm not sure how this is being, I won't say advertised, but how the word's being spread about this. Because I just kind of learned about it by accident, and maybe there might be some kind of mailing list or something for the Photo PXL website, which is Kevin's. And I've not subscribed to that. Maybe the information came in there and I just don't have it because of that. But anyway, so anyway, I'm mentioning. So if by the time you see this, maybe you can go watch that. And the other reason again for doing this video is just kind of an excuse to play around with the Viltrox 135mm f1.8 and my DJI Mic 2, which I really like. It's finally nice to have a really good quality, really small mic that works really well. And I tell you what, the magnet on this thing, it'll probably rip your shirt off if you try to pull it off without getting that magnet on the back of it. Some of the other mics like this I've had comes with a magnet. It's just so weak that thing would fall off. I would never use it because I was just so worried about it coming off. So I'd either clip it to the collar or whatever. So anyway, this is what the Viltrox 135mm looks like at f2. And again, I'm about 15, maybe 17 to 20 feet from the camera. I don't know exactly. But I like how the background and the foreground out of focus, and you're just kind of like that little slice that you're standing in where you're in that focal plane. It's really cool. And it looks like that in the photos too, when you're shooting nature and other stuff. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, and I need to find something to eat. Hope everybody's been doing well and enjoy shooting. I'm going to go to Idaho here in about a week, and hopefully I'm still in frame. I'm just trying to look straight to the lens and back up a little bit just in case. Yeah, Idaho, just all kinds of stuff, almost 2 weeks in Idaho, nature, the mountains, just sights, just general sightseeing, anything history related, anything interesting. I'm going to try to get over into the Palouse area because it'll be over on the western side. Is that Lewiston or something over there on the western side of Idaho, which is on the eastern, the eastern border of far eastern Washington, in that Palouse area, again, where Kevin Raber liked to shoot a lot. I don't know if I'll have a lot of time to do that though, but anyway, I'll be in the area. So maybe I'll see Napoleon Dynamite when I'm out there somewhere too. We'll see. All right, well, thanks for watching, and I guess keep that in mind about your photos and what you want to do with yours later on. All right, see you later.